All right, welcome to part 2 in a series of what to look for when you're buying a safe. Last week we took a look at a fairly light safe, a 65-pound safe. It was the M-Safe PSB 350. Like I said, it weighed 65 pounds. It was made from 11-gauge steel, and it had 2 layers. It also had an S2 security rating and 20 minutes of fire resistance. So not a bad safe. That one was priced at $388. This one looks very similar. It's the same color. It's roughly the same dimensions. In fact, this is the same ruler. It's not quite, it's about a ½ inch less, so 17.5 inches or about 44 centimeters wide, about 12.25 inches tall, about 31 centimeters, give or take a little bit. And the depth on this one is also 17.5, about 44 centimeters. So almost identical, same color and everything. There are some aesthetic differences, but this is quite a different animal. This is the PFB 32. It's priced at $200 more, so $607 is what I paid for this guy. There are a lot of differences that you can't see. The previous safe was 65 pounds. This safe weighs 125 pounds, so roughly double. You'll also notice this one has exterior hinges because the door, very substantial door. In fact, this door weighs almost as much as last week's entire safe. In terms of the metal, I know you guys wanted numbers on this, and I'll try to get these down. This one is 10-gauge steel. Last week was 11. And 10-gauge steel measures 0.1345 inches thick, and that's 3.4 millimeters. Last week's safe had 2 layers of steel. This one has 3. So 3 layers of steel. That comes out to 0.404 inches worth of steel in the thickness. And also that's the same as 10.2 millimeters. There's even more to this one to add to the weight. It isn't just the steel. Sandwiched in between those 3 layers of steel on this one is high-density concrete. So quite a substantial casing on this thing. As I said, it sells for $607. It's the same color. It's almost identical, but again, we got the heavy hinges, and then we have a slightly different keypad. So let's zoom in on the keypad, take a quick look at that before we open the safe and look at some of the other construction details. All right, one of the first things you want to make sure that you have when you're shopping for a safe, particularly if you're looking for an S2 rated safe like this one, is that you get an ECBS Class A certified lock. That is the minimum level of lock required to get that S2 rating. I don't know that we have that yet. We're going to have to tear the back of it off, but this panel is made by a company called EL, and that's the minimum rating of locks that they provide. The program or the keypad is programmable, just as we would expect, like last week, but somewhere between 6 and 8 digits, so up to 100 million different combinations. And then, of course, you get 3 tries. If you fail after 3 tries, it'll lock itself for 5 minutes. So to get through that many combinations would take you a very, very long time. This is also energy saving. The battery's inside. It's a 9-volt battery. Can't get at it from out here. If it dies, you don't have a problem, though. There's a contact on the front here. You touch a 9-volt battery to it. It provides just enough power to power everything to temporarily allow you to punch in your combination to get in. It has an EEPROM, so even if the battery inside goes completely flat, it doesn't lose the combination. So punching your combination, and power saving, you got to turn it on first, and it'll stay on for about 10 seconds before it'll automatically shut itself back down. So factory combination on this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I never changed them. Press enter. You hear a whirring noise, and then you just turn the handle to get into the safe. Very, very easy. All right, let's take a look at the door on this thing. Okay, as I swing this door open, I can really feel a difference between this week's safe and last week's. This door is just absolutely massive. The thickness on this guy, it's about 1.25 inches thick, which is about a little over 3 centimeters, 3.25 centimeters. Now remember, the important things are sometimes the things that you can't see. Located inside of this are 3 layers of steel, the outer, inner, and of course one in the middle, plus the concrete. And on the door itself, they actually have an anti-drill plate located around the lock that protects it from drill attacks. So all that stuff's built in the front door. The other thing you notice that on this door is that we have completely encased bolt works. We didn't have that. We had basically the minimum framework last week. This one is totally encased. And then on the back, we have the fire insulation panel. Let me go ahead and break this seal, take out some screws, and let's see if they cut any corners on the inside. All right, the first thing I noticed when I pulled the back off of this thing is it's about 7/8 of an inch thick, a little over 2 millimeters. This thing is packed with insulation on the back. Again, that's the fire protection. I was really hoping to find that they'd cut that corner, maybe shortchange this, but so far so good. Looking in here, I'd also hoped to find something that you don't want. Maybe a plastic connecting rod, a plastic bushing, some plastic pivot point. But I really don't see anything. I'm just going to have to talk about bad stuff again. So let's just kind of move around this. First of all, this is a solid steel frame all the way around it. We didn't have that last week. So this is a significant upgrade. It's welded outside and also on the inside. And the reason it's a significant upgrade is because these bolts pass through this solid plate. When the door is pried open, the bolt, no matter which one is stressed first, will share the load, the prying load, with the frame and with the other bolts as well. So that adds a lot to the prying resistance of the door. So I got to say I'm pretty impressed with that. The other thing I'm impressed with are these bolts. These are 1 inch thick hardened steel bolts. Again, that's a 1/4 inch larger than we had last week. So another one of those significant upgrades. Something may not be apparent to the eye are on these bolts, though. They have these clips, and at first I thought that might be a shortcoming until I looked at how substantial. They're spring steel. They're solidly locked in. These are not going to be falling off. The reason they did this is if someone were to cut away a portion of the door and put a saw blade through and try to cut these bolts are actually designed to turn as you push the saw blade back and forth. These are going to roll back and forth. So they did that for saw resistance. On the frame, we have up here a battery compartment, and it's kind of a remotely wired in. This looks to be the same ECBS Class A lock that we looked at last week. It's identical. Yeah, it's the same model, everything. It's held on with 4 lock nuts, which have some kind of brown sealant. I guess that's to prevent, to detect if somebody's violated, warranty, I guess. I don't know. To let them know you got in there, and probably would act as keep it from coming off, but these are lock nuts. Another substantial upgrade, again to protect against a punch attack where somebody would drill a hole in the front, stick a steel bar, and then punch the lock off from the inside, shearing these, is there's this very heavy steel plate with 4 big screws holding it directly to the steel. So that's threaded inside of there. So even if they punch it through, this is going to hold that lock in place. So punch attack, just not an option. I also noticed that the bolt work much heavier than it was. It's thicker that way, in addition to being the thickness of the metal. So if somebody did cut through, they couldn't remotely come in. It would take them a lot longer to try to cut through this bolt work to get around it that way. Again, we got the same 2 screws over here holding this bolt, and they are Loctite in place. So I got to say, I'm pretty impressed. Over here is the fill port for the concrete for the main door. As I said, inside of there's an anti-drill. I did email the company, but they wouldn't give me any details. Anti-drill could mean anything from a 1/4 inch steel plate to ball bearings or types of metal with carbide impregnated. I doubt it has that very seriously, so I'm assuming the very minimum. It's just a hard plate that's sandwiched in between the other 3 layers of steel that will protect the lock from that punch type attack. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this guy. All right, one thing I neglected to talk about was the burglar claw. Right here it is. It's quite a bit more substantial. It's about 1/4 inch thick. It goes through the door and is welded on all sides and reinforced on the back of the door. So a very strong burglar claw that fits into this groove. Now this is particularly important because here are our exterior hinges. And if someone were to cut these hinges off, that would leave this entire side of the door unsupported. So by having the burglar claw, that's going to combine with all of the other 4 1 inch thick bolts to hold this door in place. But it will definitely reinforce this side of the door to prevent any type of prying attack. All right, I think a couple of things you notice right away when we look at the inside of this safe as compared to last week's. First of all, the interior capacity on this one is quite a bit smaller. And the reason for that is, and I called them to ask why, obviously with the insulation, but they could have made the outside larger. But M-Safe made the conscious decision to make sure their safes fit into most all American-sized closets. So that explains why they couldn't make the outside of the case bigger. So they were forced to put all the additional insulation and all the plus-ups on the armor and the concrete on the inside, and that, of course, shrunk the capacity. The capacity on this guy is 15 liters. Last week we had a 25-liter capacity, so it's close, but still significantly smaller. So that's the price you pay for the 1 hour fire protection. When I say 1 hour fire protection, the outside of the safe can be exposed to 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour, and during that 1 hour, the temperature inside the safe will never get above 350. So the Euro standard in that case is exactly the same as the Underwriters Laboratory here in the States. Walls incredibly thick to accommodate everything we just talked about, but a couple of things that don't kind of jump out at you, and that would be this heat sealing tape around the perimeter, not in one place, but in two to give us a double seal. The heat tape, when it's exposed to heat, will expand. So what little jiggle there is in this door, this heat tape will fill that gap. So that when a fireman show up, start spraying water in a superheated environment, that steam is not going to infiltrate and destroy anything on the inside of there. The shelf, personally, I think because of the reduced space, I probably would get rid of the shelf. It's pretty heavy steel, but just take out the little pegs there, and then you can use the entire capacity. Inside of here, I took that to show you, it's got 2 tie downs on the bottom. This is something I neglected to talk about last week. In order to maintain your safe's rating, in this case the S2 rating, it has to be tied down according to the manufacturer's instructions. That will prevent somebody from carrying it away. It should be pretty obvious, and maybe that's why I didn't mention it. They do usually give you the graded bolts to mount this down. These are anchor bolts designed to go into concrete. Again, the plugs come up, you pull the insulation out, the holes are pre-drilled in the bottom to bolt this down solidly to the floor. This is an important time to talk about ratings because in the States, we have kind of a confusing Underwriters Laboratory code, and I think unless you're in the business, it's not really obvious. We have several ratings for our safes. We have the Residential Security Container 1, and we've talked about this before, Residential Security Container 2, and then it goes into the alphabet, B, C, then it goes into TL15, TL30, so all of those ratings, at least in the States, are based on 2 things. They're based on the construction material of the safe, telling you how thick the door and the sides have to be to meet each of those specifications. And it's also rated on, in the case of the TLs, how long it takes one or more people using tools, a variety of tools, to break into the safe. That's really cool information. But it doesn't really help us as consumers. As a consumer, the way I shop for a safe is I say, all right, I have a stamp collection or coin collection or my mother's jewelry or something that I inherited that's worth a certain value. And if it's stolen, I want to get reimbursed. And that's exactly how the Euro grades work. The S2 grade is designed, you'll be reimbursed for up to $5,700 in cash or $57,000 in valued items. Each different grade will obviously raise the level of those to higher and higher values, so you can buy the safe that you need to lock up. Now, why do I have confidence in that? And because in the Euro grades, it's really somebody else putting their money where their mouth is. In this case, the insurance companies. The insurance companies are the ones that are saying, if that safe is broken into, I will reimburse you. And you can be sure that if they had to reimburse too many people, they would retract their ratings. They wouldn't be paying it out. So that gives me a lot of confidence, and it also makes shopping for these things so much easier. All right, I think you'll agree there were some surprises on this safe, particularly when we got all the covers popped off to take a look at some of the details of this guy. I mean, compared to last week, the price difference was $200 over last week's. The burglar resistance on this clearly is a lot higher. This thing is twice as heavy. It's got a lot more steel. It's got concrete, whereas the previous one didn't. We got a reinforced door, particularly the frame, thicker bolts, and then you add 1 hour fire protection on top of that, all thrown in for $200. I've got to say, from what we saw and from what I saw, I've got to say this safe probably exceeds the requirements for the S2. My guess, without knowing the filling, the exact filling, my guess would be that if they upgraded this to a Class B lock instead of a Class A, it probably would push it up one grade. But with the Class A, the certification for sure is a S2 rating. All right, next week we are going to look at a higher rated safe. We're going to look at the PFB1-32 is going to be exactly the same size, but up armored and got some other enhancements thrown in there. All right, guys, this will be the giveaway. This, as I said, the MSafe PFB32E sells for $600. I'm going to be giving this away, and had a lot of you guys comment that, that I really should offer it. If you're willing to pay the shipping, I should offer to ship it to you, and I'll do that this week. I did call a freight company. They will send somebody out. They'll package it. They'll band it onto a pallet, and they'll ship it. And the prices they offered are, again, guessing because there's no way to guess where you live. Somewhere between $200 and $300 was the lady's guess. So if you are willing to pay the shipping and you are the winner, I will have them ship it to you, provided you pay the shipping company. All right, guys, appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay legal. You want to know how to register for the free giveaway? Stick around. I will tell you how to do it. Thanks, guys. All you need to do is navigate to locklab.com, the tribal website, and scroll down in the middle of the page. You'll see all the giveaway buttons, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But the one you're looking for is the Weekend Review giveaway, purple band. Just click on it. It'll take you to the registration page. Again, scroll to the bottom, put in a good email address, so if you win, I can get in touch with you, let you know. Put in a username, doesn't matter what it is, and click Submit. When you're done, you'll get a green check mark confirming your entry. Thanks, guys.